You ever hear the story of Moses, man? Like really hear it, not just the cartoon or the little snippet from school. I'm talking about the real thing. The deep, intense, spiritual, cosmic battle between this one man and the most powerful ruler on earth at the time, Pharaoh. Dude, it's wild. So check this out. You've got this guy, Musa or Moses, right? Born in ancient Egypt at a time when Pharaoh, who literally thought he was a god, was running the place like a total dictator. And Pharaoh was paranoid. He got wind of some prophecy that said a boy from the Israelites would rise up and challenge. So what does he do? He starts ordering the killing of newborn babies. It's dark, man, real dark. But then, like some divine level plot twist, baby Musa ends up in the very palace of Pharaoh raised by his own enemies. That's straight out of a movie, bro. He's this Israelite kid adopted by the royal family, growing up in wealth, power, the finest education, probably trained in everything, politics, war, language, you name it. But deep down, his DNA, his soul, still belongs to the people who are being oppressed. It's like this warrior who's been trained by the system, but realizes, wait, I don't belong to them. One day, he sees an Egyptian beating an Israelite slave. Musa steps in and ends up killing the guy. Boom, instant fugitive. He runs off into the desert. And this is where it gets even crazier, man. He goes into exile, lives among the people of Midian, gets married, becomes a shepherd, just chilling in nature, away from all the politics and chaos. And then it happens the moment that changes everything, the burning bush. This bush is on fire, but it's not burning up. And a voice calls out to him, not just any voice. God, think about that. Not some hallucination, not a dream, but a real encounter with the creator of the universe. And the message, Musa, go back to Pharaoh. Tell him to let the Israelites go. Can you imagine the intensity of that moment? He left Egypt a wanted man. Now he has to return, face Pharaoh, the most powerful man alive, and deliver this divine message. It's like walking back into the lion's den, but you're armed with truth. And here's the kicker. When Musa's like, I'm not good at speaking, God tells him, take out your brother Aaron with you. Bro, it's like a tag team mission. Prophet Musa is the warrior and Aaron is the communicator. It's like this perfect blend of fire and flow. Now, picture this. They walk into Pharaoh's palace, this huge golden intimidating place, guards everywhere, columns stretching to the sky. And these two guys just walk right up to the throne. And they say, we come with a message from the Lord of the worlds. Let the children of Israel go. Pharaoh's like, who is this Lord of the worlds? That's the arrogance of power, man. This guy thinks he's God. He literally says, I am your Lord Most High, but Musa doesn't flinch. He tells him straight up that he's sent by the one who created everything, the sky, the earth, life, death, all of it. And here's where it gets epic. Pharaoh challenges him. So MSA throws down his staff, and boom, it turns into a snake, a living, moving, terrifying serpent. And everyone's like, what just happened? Pharaoh, not backing down, brings his magicians like a whole squad. They throw their ropes and sticks and make them look like snakes with illusions. But then Musa throws his staff again, and his real snake devours theirs one by one. Gone. At that moment, the magicians, the ones Pharaoh trusted, fall to their knees and declare, we believe in the Lord of Musa and Aaron. Can you imagine how powerful that moment was? These magicians were the elite, and now they're risking their lives to stand for truth. And Pharaoh loses it. He threatens them, tortures them, but they don't back down. Meanwhile, Pharaoh keeps refusing to free the Israelites. So what happens? Plagues, signs, divine warnings. The Nile turns to blood frogs, lice, locusts, darkness, disease spreading among Pharaoh's people. Water becomes undrinkable. Livestock dies. And every time Pharaoh says, okay, I'll let them go, he changes his mind. It's the ultimate ego battle. Like, bro, he sees the signs. He knows he's not in control anymore. But that pride just won't let him submit. And finally, God tells Musa, take your people and leave now. So in the middle of the night, they escape. But Pharaoh finds out, and he's furious. He gathers his army, chariots, weapons, everything. He's going to crush them once and for all. Imagine that moment, man. And the Israelites are standing at the edge of the Red Sea. Behind them, Pharaoh's army. Ahead of them, water. They're trapped, and the people are freaking out. But MSA with absolute faith says, my Lord is with me, and he will guide me. And then the sea parts, not just a little puddle, bro. I'm talking massive waves pushed aside. A dry path straight through. It's like something out of a science fiction movie, except it's real. They walk through every single one of them safe. And just as Pharaoh and his army charge in, the waters crash down. Game over. Pharaoh, the self-proclaimed God, is gone. drowned in the same sea he thought he ruled over. Now, here's the part that blows my mind, man. This isn't just a story of a man versus a king. It's not even about a nation escaping slavery. It's about truth versus ego. It's about faith versus arrogance. It's about what happens when a human being, no matter how weak or scared, decides to stand on the side of God and truth and goes up against the most powerful empire of his time and wins. That's not just history. That's a blueprint. You look around today and we've still got pharaohs, not in name, but in spirit. People who abuse power, who think they're untouchable, who want to crush the weak. But the story of Musa reminds us truth doesn't need an army. It just needs someone brave enough to carry it. And here's something else, bro. Musa isn't some distant figure. In Islam, he's one of the most mentioned prophets in the entire Quran. That's huge. There's a reason his story gets told again and again because it's relevant forever. Whether you're facing injustice or you're stuck in fear or you feel like the odds are stacked against you, remember this. One man with faith took down a tyrant. What would the world look like if more people had the courage of Musa to speak the truth even when it's dangerous, to stand for what's right even when it's unpopular, to trust that no matter how big the enemy, God is bigger? That's not just religion, man. That's real strength. So after the whole Red Sea miracle, you'd think that's it, right? Pharaoh's gone. The Israelites are free. End of story. But nah, man, the real test begins after free. That's what most people don't get. You escape the chains. But now what? Now you've got to build a life of truth, discipline, faith. And that's not easy, especially when you've been slaves for generations. These people, the Israelites, weren't just physically in chains. They were mentally conditioned to obey, to follow, to fear. Now they're suddenly free walking through the desert led by Prophet Musa. And they don't know how to handle freedom. It's wild, man. You can take people out of slavery, but can you take slavery out of people? And this is where Prophet Musa's true leadership kicks in. Think about it. He's not just guiding them through land. He's guiding them through trauma, through doubts, through decades of pain. And dude, it's not easy. These people question him, they complain, they test him constantly, and still he stays the course. That's next level patience. That's not just leadership. That's prophetic endurance. There's this moment early on. They're thirsty in the desert, no water anywhere. They start freaking out, and what does Musa do? He turns to God, and God tells him to strike a rock. He hits the rock with the staff, and 12 springs gush out, one for each tribe. Boom. Instant hydration. Divine level miracle again. Like, this guy has seen more signs than any human alive, but still his people doubt. Then they start getting hungry, and guess what? God sends down food from the sky, manna and quail, literally food descending from heaven. But after a while they start complaining, we want onions, we want lentils, garlic. Bro, imagine that. You're getting divine Uber Eats, and you're complaining because you miss cucumbers. It's hilarious, but also kind of sad. It shows how hard it is to satisfy the human ego, even when you're witnessing miracles. And through all this, Musa keeps going, keeps leading. Now, here's a mind-blowing moment, man. There's a scene where Prophet Musa, this guy who's already spoken to God, asks the ultimate question. My Lord, show yourself to me. That right there, that's deep. It's not arrogance. It's not rebellion. It's longing, pure spiritual thirst. He's not asking for proof. He knows God is real. He's asking for connection, for closeness, for that next level. And God replies, you will not see me, but look at the mountain. If it remains in place, then you will see me. So Musa looks and boom, God manifests just a glimpse of his glory to the mountain. The entire mountain collapses. Musa falls unconscious. Man, think about that. The most powerful man of his time, who parted a sea, who spoke to the Creator, couldn't even handle a fraction of God's presence. That's how vast the divine is. It puts everything into perspective. Your money, your fame, your strength, it's all dust compared to that level of reality. And Musa, he wakes up humbled and he says, glory be to you. I repent. I am the first to believe. That moment is cosmic. It's not just religious. It's metaphysical, like when you stare at the stars and realize how small you are, but also how meaningful your existence is. It's that duality, man, humility and purpose all at once. Now, fast forward a little. Musa goes up to Mount Sinai for 40 nights. He's gone for divine instructions, the commandments, the guidance. But while he's up there, what happens down below? His people, the same people who witnessed the sea part, who saw Pharaoh drown, who drank from the rock, they make a golden calf and start worshipping it. Let that sink in. They literally build a statue like some old school idol and say, this is our God. Now, it's heartbreaking, man. MSA comes down holding these divine tablets like pure truth in stone and finds his people dancing around this golden statue. He smashes the tablets and he confronts his brother Haran. What happened? I left you in charge, and Haran's like, bro, I tried. They wouldn't listen. I feared they'd split if I forced them. This moment is one of the rawest in the whole story. It's a prophet at his breaking point. Rage, disappointment, heartbreak, all mixed in, but still, Musa doesn't quit. He doesn't say, I'm done. He prays, he pleads, he rebuilds, and God forgives. That's real leadership, man. Not quitting when things fall apart, but standing back up and facing the fire again and again. Another time MS asks his people to enter the promised land. God says, go and fight. I've given it to you. But the people chicken out. They're like, there are giants there. You and your Lord go fight. We'll wait here. That's straight up betrayal. And Musa again turns to God. And God says, then this land is forbidden to them for 40 years. They'll wander in the desert. So now you've got a prophet leading a stubborn people through the wilderness for 4 decades. That's an entire lifetime. And he does it faithfully. He guides, he prays, he teaches, he disciplines, and he waits, all for a promise he himself won't even enter. Because here's the kicker. Prophet Musa doesn't get to enter the promised land. He dies on the outskirts. After a lifetime of struggle, of miracles, of leadership, he dies humbly, quietly in the desert. But before he goes, he gives everything to his successor. Yusha passes the torch. No ego, no legacy obsession, just truth. That to me is the ultimate lesson. So many people think legacy means statues, awards, podcasts, fame. But Musa's legacy, it lives on in the hearts of billions. Jews, Christians, Muslims all revere him, not because he ruled an empire, but because he freed people from one. Not because he made money, but because he stood for truth. And it makes you think, man, how many modern-day pharaohs are out there? Politicians, billionaires, media empires, controlling minds, feeding fear. And how many people are Musa types? Quiet, faithful, unshaken. Not many, but we need them more than ever. So here's what really blows my mind, man. Prophet MSA didn't even get to enter the promised land, right? Like after all that, after going toe to toe with the most powerful tyrant of his time, after leading his people through miracles, disasters, betrayal, and 40 years of wandering in the desert, the guy dies before even stepping foot into the land they were promised. And you'd think that's unfair, but that's the thing. That's exactly what makes it so powerful. Musa wasn't doing it for himself. He wasn't in it for glory or status. He wasn't chasing real estate. He was fulfilling a mission. And sometimes, man, the mission is bigger than the man. It's about carrying the torch far enough so someone else can take it the rest of the way. That's real selflessness. That's real legacy. And here's what gets me. Even after MS's death, the echoes of his journey didn't stop. His story lived on. In fact, in the Qur'an, he's the most mentioned prophet more than anyone else. That's not random. That's divine emphasis. And you got to ask, why him? Why his struggle? Why his pain, his perseverance? His story of going up against ego and tyranny and doubt. It's because his life is a mirror, man, a mirror for all of us. Like when you're facing something overwhelming, maybe a boss who's toxic or a system that's corrupt or even your own demons. The story of Musa reminds you, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to be faithful. And here's another thing people miss. Prophet Musa had deep emotional layers. This guy wasn't just a strong leader or a spiritual warrior. He was human. He got frustrated. He cried. He pleaded. There's this moment where he says, "Oh my Lord, I have no control over anyone except myself and my brother." Man, that line hits deep, because sometimes even prophets feel powerless. Even the chosen ones feel tired, and that's comforting in a way, because it tells us you can feel broken and still be on the right path. You can struggle and still be chosen. And that humility, that's what made Musa special. He never claimed to be a god. He never acted like he had it all figured out. He just kept going, even when the people around him doubted him, even when they betrayed him, even when he was alone. That's strength. Not the Hollywood kind, the real kind. Quiet, persistent, rooted in purpose. And here's what I find wild. You take Prophet Musa's story and lay it over the modern world, and it still fits. Today we've got digital pharaohs, systems that control how we think, what we eat, what we believe. We've got idols, not golden calves, but glowing screens, celebrities, fake news, followers, filters. We've got manipulation and distraction everywhere. And still the answer is the same. Truth, faith, discipline, courage. It's the Musa blueprint. And check this out. Even his duelist, his prayers were next level. Like before facing Pharaoh, he didn't ask for a sword or an army. He asked, "Oh my Lord, expand my chest for me. Ease my task. Untee the knot from my tongue so they may understand my speech. Bro, that's the prayer of a warrior who knows the real battlefield is inside. It's not about muscle. It's about message. It's not about domination. It's about communication. That kind of prayer, that's what real leaders make. And what's even more legendary is how Allah responded. Not only did he accept Musa's prayer, he gave him support, his brother Harun, because even prophets need a partner sometimes, someone to lean on, someone to carry the message when your voice shakes. That right there is a lesson in humility and brotherhood, and honestly one of the most relatable parts of his story is when he says, I fear they will reject me. That fear of rejection, of being laughed at, ignored, silenced, that's a universal human fear. Even prophets feel it. But the difference is they keep going anyway. They face the fear. They step into the fire and they speak truth even when their voice trembles. And remember when Musa asks to see God and the mountain crumbles? That scene is such a metaphor. It's like we always want to see the end. We want clarity. We want control. But the truth is some things are too vast for us to grasp. Some realities are so powerful, they'll break you if you get too close. So what does God do? He gives us just enough signs, glimpses, guidance, and then he tells us, trust me. That's what faith is, man. Not blind obedience, but trusting the one who sees what you can't. And you look at Musa's whole life. It's filled with signs. The staff turning into a snake, the hand glowing with light, the sea splitting, the water from the rock, the fire on the mountain, the voice from the unseen. And yet his people still doubted. And honestly, we still do, 'cause miracles don't change the heart. Faith does. That's the real power. That's why Allah says in the Qur'an that he sent Musa with clear signs. But Pharaoh and his people were arrogant. They denied not because they didn't believe, but because they didn't want to submit. Bro, that's so real. Sometimes the truth isn't rejected because it's false. It's rejected because it threatens power. It threatens comfort. It challenges ego, and ego is loud, man. That's Pharaoh. I am your Lord Most High, he said. You hear that today in boardrooms, on stages, in politics. That same Pharaoh mindset, it's alive. But so is the Musa mindset, standing firm, speaking truth, walking humbly, trusting God. That's timeless. And here's what I love most. Even after death, Prophet Musa's story keeps teaching. When the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, went on the night journey, Israel and Miraj, guess who he met in the heavens? Musa. And they had a conversation. Musa gives advice to Muhammad, tells him to reduce the number of daily prayers for the Muslim Ummah out of compassion. Even in the next life, Musa is still looking out for people, still playing the role of a teacher. That's deep. That's legacy. And look, man, in a world full of noise where everybody's trying to be famous or right or rich, the story of Prophet Musa reminds us, be real, be patient, be brave, stand for truth even when you're alone, speak with wisdom even when they mock you, and trust God even when the sea hasn't parted yet, because it will. And when it does, walk through it like Musa did, not with fear, but with faith. And bro, one of the wildest things that really sticks with me is how Prophet Musa's entire journey was never about ease. It was about impact. You look at how it started. He's a baby tossed into the river by his mother, trusting that somehow God would protect him. And where does he end up? In the house of the enemy in Pharaoh's palace. Dude literally grows up in the lion's den. And think about that for a second. That's how the universe operates. Sometimes the very place of danger becomes the place of preparation. Like sometimes God doesn't pull you away from the fire. He raises you in it so you can learn how to put it out. And what makes Musa's story so unique is that dual identity. Raised by the elite but heartbroken by the oppressed. He never forgot who he really was. That's rare. Most people, when they taste power, they forget their roots. But not Musa. He saw injustice and he acted. Yeah, he made a mistake. He took a life. But that moment, that was the catalyst. That's what launched his journey. He didn't run from his past. He faced it, grew from it, and used it to serve. And that's the thing, man. Real growth isn't about perfection. It's about redemption. It's about turning pain into purpose. You get these people today who are stuck in guilt, in shame, in regret. But Musa's story says, you're not disqualified, you're being prepared, and when he goes out into the desert, into exile, that's not punishment, that's training, that's solitude. That's when he becomes who he needs to be. You know, the mountain of Sinai isn't just a physical place. It's a metaphor for transformation because in isolation, you hear what the noise of the world drowns out. That's when you get clarity. And the burning bush, that's like the moment of awakening. And I always think about that. God spoke to Musa directly. No messenger, no middleman, just him and the Creator. That's one of the most powerful things in all of Scripture. And what's the first thing God says? Take off your sandals. You're on sacred ground. That's deep. Like before you can receive truth, you got to drop the layers, drop the ego, drop the distractions, come raw, come humble. Because sacred conversations don't happen when you're pretending, they happen when you're real. And when God gives Musa the mission to go to Pharaoh, Musa doesn't puff up his chest. He says, I'm afraid. Straight up, that's real masculinity, man. Not fake confidence, but the courage to admit fear and still move forward. And God tells him, go, you are not alone. And that right there, that's divine reassurance, because the hardest missions always come with heavenly backup. And then you look at how Musa handles power. He doesn't crave it. He doesn't exploit it. He uses it to liberate. That's leadership. Real leadership isn't about control. It's about service, and that's the opposite of Pharaoh. Pharaoh represents everything wrong with unchecked ego. I am your Lord. He says, think about that mindset today. People think money, fame, influence makes them untouchable, that they can rewrite truth. But here's the twist. Pharaoh had all the power and still he drowned. Why? Because the universe, or let's say God, doesn't let tyranny last forever. There's a limit. There's a moment when even oceans rise up to say enough. And what breaks my heart is how Musa's people still struggled even after being saved, because trauma doesn't vanish overnight. Slavery may end, but the mindset that takes time. That's why they wandered in the desert, not as punishment, but as healing, as reprogramming. And Musa, he stayed with them, patient, steady, even when they broke promises, even when they worshipped a golden calf right after witnessing miracles. That's insane, right? Like, how do you see the Red Sea part and then go build an idol? But that's the nature of the human heart. Miracles don't guarantee faith. It's discipline. It's remembering. That's why the Qur'an keeps saying remember, because forgetfulness is the real enemy. And that's what Prophet Ms was fighting, not just Pharaoh, but forgetfulness, weakness, doubt. That's the real battlefield. And bro, imagine the pressure leading thousands of people through the desert. No map, no resources, just trust, just revelation. That's leadership on the edge. And here's what's so human about Ms. He gets frustrated. He raises his voice. He throws the tablets. And yet God still honors him, still calls him chosen. That's a powerful lesson. You don't have to be emotionless to be spiritual. You can be strong and still cry. You can fall and still rise. And maybe that's why Musa is so relatable. He's not distant or perfect. He's real. He struggles. He questions. He even asks God to show himself. That's such a bold request. And when God shows just a glimpse, the mountain shatters and Musa collapses. That scene, that's pure metaphor that the human soul craves transcendence but can't handle it all at once. So we're given signs, hints, reflections, and we're told trust, surrender, keep walking. And even in death, Ms's place of burial is unknown. Nobody knows where he's buried. That's divine design, man. So people don't turn his grave into a shrine, because the message is more important than the man. And today, thousands of years later, his story still echoes in every protest against oppression, in every voice that speaks truth to power, in every person who walks away from the crowd and says, I'm going to follow the truth even if I walk alone. That's Musa. And look, man, in this world where we're drowning in noise, media, politics, influencers, we need Musa's voice more than ever, not literally, but the spirit, the courage, the grit, the honesty, the connection to something higher. Because at the end of the day, every one of us faces our own Pharaoh. Whether it's your ego, your addiction, your fear, your doubts, and every one of us is standing at the edge of our own Red Sea. And God is saying, strike the staff, move forward, trust me. And maybe that's the takeaway. That faith isn't the absence of fear. It's walking through it. That leadership isn't loud, it's consistent. And that real freedom doesn't just mean breaking chains, it means breaking illusions. Prophet Musa's story isn't just history. It's prophecy, it's psychology, it's the roadmap for every soul looking for truth. And if you ask me, that's what makes him one of the greatest of all time.